Hey, Ben. Today we're going to talk about sex. While I eat last bite of a cookie. So this is kind of a touchy subject. From a Christian perspective, I'm going to move the earth right quick. Here you are. Okay. And I wanted to do this video mostly about kissing. From like a Christian perspective. It seems pretty gross when you think about what kissing is, really, but people love to do it. Now, the Christian issue, and the thing about this is a teenager question, and that's why I wanted to cover it. Teenagers always ask the same questions, and the same ones keep coming back. You know, stuff like, if I commit suicide, will I go straight to hell? And is it okay for me to listen to non-Christian music? And like, is it okay for me to cuss? And what about kissing? It's the same thing. Drinking, drugs, since forever and ever. So let's get right to the chase. Matthew chapter 5 has a lot of good stuff in it, but the verse that probably is the one that's of interest here, I don't remember the number, but it says, if you look at a woman with lust, then you have already committed adultery with her in your heart. So there's a lot lost in translation there. I hate to say that. I hate to have to say that, because it makes people doubt that they can even read their Bible and know what it means. But for the most part, your translations are really good, but like, they're not always. So that word that's translated with is in this amazing Greek word, and I don't know everything there is to know about Greek, but this is a very prevalent word in Greek. It's a very common word in Greek. It's a very common preposition, and it's the preposition pros. The problem with pros is that there's no word in the English language that means what pros means. And to get a grip for that, pros, if you look it up in the Greek, like to English dictionary, it's going to say to, towards, and with. And as you can see in this verse, it said anyone who looks at a woman with lust. So they translated it with there. The problem is that pros, it doesn't mean to, or towards, or with. It means to and towards and with, like all rolled into one word. To and towards and with. And there's no word in English that really has all of that rolled into one word. So it's like when you translate it with, it means like to do it, towards it, with it, all that together. So a better translation maybe, and I'm not the first one to say this, would be anyone who looks at a woman to lust, which is a perfectly fine translation in the Greek. Literally, it's translated that way just as many times as it's translated other ways. And so, in other words, like every, like Romans, Corinthians, all of those, it's the epistle to the Romans, epistle to the epistle pros the Romans, epistle pros the Corinthians, epistle, it's to them, but it's with them, like I'm with you. You know what I mean? The other problem is the word lust. It's not a sexual word. We tend to use it that way in English today. In English of years gone by, it wasn't a sexual word, the word lust. And then the word that is translated from in Greek is not a sexual word. So it's epithumia. So, epi is another Greek preposition, and in Greek you like tag a preposition onto a word. So like, epi means on top of, like your skin has the epidermis, the dermis, and the upodermis, and the upa means under, and the epi means on top of, right? Or we're learning about how in genetics there's the epigenetics, which is an added layer of complication on top of already complicated genetics. Okay? So the root word there, it's epithumia. What's thumia mean? It means like super ridiculously heated anger or passion about something. So why add epi on top of that? Well, it means like it's one of those peculiar little Greekisms. So you got to think like you're stacking super passionate feeling on top of itself, like that you, in other words, you just filled up. That's all you are, is desire for that thing. So in other words, like a cup of water could be something I could use right now. I don't have one, but I desire a cup of water. There's nothing sinful about that. But if I was to lust for a cup of water, if I was to epithemia a cup of water, then like all I would be is desire for that cup of water. And you can see how that could be a problem. Okay? So to fill yourself, to be filled, to want to fill yourself spiritually and emotionally, mentally with lust for, in this case, for a person of the opposite sex or gender. So this raises a question, well, all right, what about, let's just say, what about kissing? You know, or what about maybe holding hands? And a lot of people, holding hands is interesting because a lot of teenagers will tell you that it's not sexual, it's no big deal. Well, A, it is a big deal. And C, D, whatever, it is sexual. I mean, would you hold hands with another dude? Just walk down the street holding hands with another dude? You would say that was homosexual. So if you hold hands with a girl, it's heterosexual. The thing about it is, in our culture, I don't know if all cultures have always done this, but in our culture, it's a way of signifying to the world that there's something serious between these two people. So you need to recognize that. A lot of these things are just culturally determined. So, for example, in our culture today, it's not that big a deal for a girl to show her legs. But if you rewind the clock like to 1850, it was a very big deal for a girl to show her legs, and she would cover up like her ankles. But it was not a big deal for her to show her cleavage. So like, we flip that today, and it is a girl showing her cleavage is seen as a naughty girl, but showing her ankles or her legs, she's normal. In 1850, it was reversed. Showing your legs, you were naughty. Showing your cleavage, you're normal. Not a big deal. Okay, so you see like because in their day, they saw, the legs were getting close to the groin region and the private, so they saw that as closer to sex, and that you should stay further away from that. But the breasts were like an okay thing to show because that's further away. They saw that as secondary, to be something to be presented, whereas you shouldn't be getting close to the privates, the privy members. Holding hands, kissing, that kind of thing. The thing about it is, what Jesus said there in Matthew chapter 5 is, if you look at a woman to epithemia, to lust, then you've committed adultery with her in your heart. Now, honestly, if you're kissing a girl or a boy, to say that you have no sexual desire there, I'll be honest with you. I had a conversation years ago with a friend of mine who wanted to defend that he could go and he would make out with girls and that there was nothing like sexual about it, and that there was no commitment between the two of them. And that was the thing I didn't like. He said there was no commitment between the two of them. And what I said is, if there's no commitment, then there's no love. And then you're having something sexual, that there's no love in that. That was my point. No commitment, then there's no love, and then there's no love in your sex. And he said, well, it wasn't sexual, and that was kind of absurd. And that's where another friend of mine jumped in and he said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He loved to jump in on things like that, but it was just, come on, man. Like, are you seriously saying that you have no desire here? Of course you do. Of course you do. Okay, so I'm not gonna belabor that and treat you as like you're being as weird as him. You probably understand that. So yes, kissing is sexual and there is arousal involved. And what most of what you read is articles written by Christians on this, that they say be careful because it'll lead to other things and then you'll be having sex outside of marriage. Honestly, I think if someone needs to be warned about that, they're probably too young to even be messing with it. Like, as a teenager, you almost certainly are too young to be messing around with this. But I'm going to put it in a different way. It's hard for me not to name names. I've known too many people. And so, for example, I didn't go on this trip. It was like a Christian college group retreat thing where they go and they hear sermons and they go to small group Bible studies. But like, they got a hotel room they stay in, and I don't know how it was, but like this fella who's a friend of mine, and they were all friends of mine, had a girlfriend, and they were in the room together, sleeping on the floor, and one of my friends just said it was hard to fall asleep because of all the face sucking going on. Okay, and I've seen that happen, and then the guy who was complaining about it, he had relationships that were like that, where it's just like that's all they do. They just make out. That's what it's called, making out. And that's life to them. That's all they do. And that I don't think that's such a good idea, because I've seen that too many times, and all of those times those relationships never went anywhere. I'm not saying if that's all you do that the relationship's not going anywhere, but it becomes the distraction, and I've seen it too many times where they realize they're not the right one for one another, but they stay together to have someone to make out with. I've seen that too many times, and it becomes like the only reason they're together. I've seen it over and over and over. Like, it becomes all that they are to each other. They have nothing in common. There's no anything that they like about each other than that. That's it. That's why, and they tolerate each other, and they don't like each other, but they like doing that. And so, if we take what Jesus said seriously about committing adultery with someone in your heart, then you shouldn't proceed into anything sexual with anyone that you're not going to be married to. Now, here's the thing. I remember a young teenage boy came to me one time and he asked me this question, and this boy was really upset at the thought that like his wife one day he would get married to her and then she wouldn't want to have sex with him. And I was like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I didn't say that, but I was like, why would she marry you? She doesn't have to marry. Why would she marry someone that she doesn't want to have sex with? Why? But at the same time, on the flip-flop, on down the line, I've seen it happen more than once where the husband eventually has a wife that decides she's not into him anymore. She falls in love with some other guy, and she's not really sleeping with her husband anymore. She's going around with the other guy. I've seen that happen. And men do it too, don't get me wrong. But there is this need for people to signal, I guess, that they want to take things further, so like you need to know before you get married, before you tie the knot, that you're into one another physically. Like, that obviously you need to kind of cover that base and have that sorted out. I think most people know that. I don't know why this boy was afraid that like we were going to get married and we would never know if we actually were attracted to one another. Like, that seems kind of stupid. I think people will figure that out. But at the same time, they're going to figure that out by some sort of something. You may just show them something, give them a little something, and I don't really see a problem with that as long as it's going somewhere. If you understand everything, if you pull together everything that I've said, as long as that is a sign of something more and something real, and not just, I don't have any idea if I want to marry you, but I'm really, really physically aroused right now, and so I'm just going to hang out in this zone that I can get away with of making out, and just live there, and then we'll worry about the marriage stuff later. No, I don't think that's contrary to the purpose of sex. Sex is something you're doing where you're letting someone, you're giving someone rights to your fundamental possession in this life. In other words, like, all of the stuff I own, all the stuff you own, you could lose it all. Your clothes off your back, and you still exist on this earth. But if you lose your body, you do not exist. You are dead. Okay, so your physical body is your fundamental possession. I don't care how much junk you own and how many storage bins you have to put it in. Your body is your fundamental possession. So when you give someone rights to your stuff, you're showing that you trust them, that you care about them, that you want to bring them in your life. But when you give someone rights to your body, that's serious. And it should be taken seriously. It should be taken as serious as your life is. And I don't see a problem with, again, a kiss or a hug or holding hands, as long as it's a sign that things are going somewhere. Does that make sense? And it's bad. It's always bad when it's this, like, oh, I'm really attracted and I'm just going to make out with you, but I have no idea if I want anything serious with you, but I just really just enjoy the making out. And I've seen that happen too many times where it gets to the point where that's all they do, and they don't even like each other, and it's become clear that they don't even enjoy hanging out, they don't have common interests, and that they really should move on. But they don't, because they're making out. How many times have I seen that? Over and over. And so just, yeah, I don't have a problem with, even it might be just showing someone something physically, as long as there's a line you're not willing to cross, but just a little something, or a kiss or something, as long as it's a real kiss that means something. You know what I mean? I don't have a problem with a real kiss. I don't have a problem with, like, the kiss at the end of the movie. You know what I mean? And that kind of thing is one that means something, but it loses that meaning when it's just, you're just hanging out with this person because it's the person you kiss, and it gets monotonous and old like that, and it's so bad because it becomes this thing where that's all they do. So I hope this video wasn't too terribly long. I hope you understand the concept that use these sexual cues and these sexual things as like a way of letting people know that, yes, this is serious between us. But not as just a way to enjoy yourself when you have no idea what you want with that person. If you have no idea what you want with that person, then don't open yourself up in even these little hand-holding, kissing, these little tidbits of sex way. Okay, and now to the teenager point. The problem for teenagers is that in your teenage years, you're really figuring out who you are. You're kind of on the tail end of that, but you're still figuring out who you are as a person and what matters to you. And if you don't know who you are yet, then it is impossible for you to know who the right person for you is yet. Like the camera I have here, I have to look up what kind of camera it is to figure out what kind of battery it needs. The one that you're watching me through. So, like, you need to know what kind of person you are to know what kind of person is the right person for you. And if your idea of yourself is not all that certain, not all that well understood, then you don't have a very good idea at all who is the right person for you. And if you don't know who the right person for you is, then you don't have any business kissing someone, and saying that this is my way of letting you know that there's something serious between us. You know what I'm saying? So then the kiss just becomes just a way of using a person's body just to enjoy yourself, and there's no real love in that because there's no commitment. And it becomes sex without love, and it becomes using another person's body to make yourself feel good. And it gets creepier and creepier from there. We could go on, but essentially what you have there is you're not going to make any commitment to this person, then you're going to move on to another person, move on to another person, move on to another person, move on, and there's just a depth of commitment that you're never going to go to, and you're missing out on something bigger and better, essentially. And you're taking your body, which is your fundamental possession, and essentially sex is an art form of letting someone know, something serious that's between you. And like, if you're just moving on to another person, then you're kind of watering down what the sex could mean and what it could express. And it's going to be hard to get that back. And it probably, if you really have a lot of sex with a lot of people, it's going to be hard for it to have that effect of letting someone know something serious. And you're probably going to need to spend some time just not having any of that with anyone, so that it kind of regains some significance and some seriousness. But shouldn't your most fundamental possession in this life, doesn't it make sense that the sharing of that should have some significance and some seriousness, some most fundamental seriousness? Shouldn't it be reserved for the most fundamental relationship in your life? What other purpose would it serve? You literally have a way that brings great pleasure to you and to another person, that also creates human life, and you think that that's not special. It should be most special because it's your most fundamental possession in this life. I mean, so yeah, I don't know what else to say. I hope that makes sense. I guess the final thing we should have to say is that the point is, philosophically, intent is prior to content. So it's not so much whether you kiss, it's why you're kissing. That's the problem. And if you're kissing for the right reasons, no big deal. Or rather, it is a big deal, and that's a good thing. But if it's for the wrong reason, then it becomes the face sucking where your friend can't fall asleep because they're too busy, and then there was almost nothing between them, and it was just so awkward to be around those two, because like they clearly weren't into each other except for the face sucking. That was it. It really cheapens the face sucking. Anyways, I hope that makes sense. I hope I brought some clarity. It's not so much about why you do it. It was not so much about what you do. It's more about why you do it. And if you have the right why, then the right what will come out of that. But make it serious. Make it real. Don't make it cheap. Because it's the basic thing that you own in this life. Alright. I hope that makes sense. Thank you for your time.